Coming up, who are the late round gems who could turn the Nets draft from good to great? I'll answer that after this.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. The show is 100% free on all those great platforms. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And on today's show, I'm joined by draft analyst Derek Parker to talk about Brooklyn's draft strategy, some late round gems they could target, and how they should approach their board. But before we get to the interview with Derek, talking about some late round prospects, if we're going to be talking about late round prospects, I think we have to talk about the Nets' quantity of picks overall and how they can approach that from a strategic standpoint, because the Nets obviously have the 8th pick, the 19th pick, the 26th and the 27th in the first round. And then they also have 36 at the top of the second round. And the Nets have been rumored to be, and the speculation has been that they are one of the most likely teams in the draft to move up, whether into, further into the top 10, whether into the late lottery, whether into, the late teens, whatever. They expect some movement from the Nets. Teams expect some movement from the Nets. And there's a reason for that. It's because when you have four first-round picks, it's highly unusual to make all those selections and to roster 4 rookies, let alone 5, if you talk about the Nets pick at 36, because, there's a litany of reasons for that. It's obviously tough from a development standpoint. If you have your development staff and you're trying to put your energy into, focusing on these specific guys and developing them, it's really tough to do that with 4 or 5 guys. There's also, the contractual piece of it, which isn't as big of a deal because, if you have 4 or 5 guys hit, there's worse problems to have. You can trade some of those guys. You can recruit more assets. But from the developmental standpoint and, trying to get all those guys playing time with the other guys you have on your team who are developing as well, it's really difficult. So because of that, you'd expect the Nets to consolidate. And furthermore, in this draft, there's just so many ways that they could look to move up. There's so many different strategies that they can take. I just touched on a few of them. They have 8. If they wanted to move up a little bit further in the top 10, they could package 8 with 19. They could package 8, 19 and a player. They could do something along those lines to move up from 8. If you're talking about, some of the deals that we've heard rumors about, whether it be, the rumor about the Raptors or the Rockets at 9 and 10 with the Nets packaging Cam Johnson in 19 to move up to one of those picks and taking out a bad contract. That's another option. You also have just the option to package some assortment of 26, 27, and 36 to move into the early 20s. You could do that. And also, the strength of the draft, I think, is going to play into this conversation because this is a stronger draft than years past, one of the strongest in the last few decades. This is also one of the deeper drafts. I've talked to people who have said that this is the deepest draft that they've covered or that they've approached in 25 or so years. So when you have a draft that's deep, you have some teams who don't have any picks. There's going to be teams who want to get into the draft, and the 20s, Nets having 26 and 27, is a place where it would make some sense for some teams to get in. There are a lot of people who have said, picks 20 to 30, every one of those picks could be available. And for the Nets, having both of those picks at 26 and 27, it could make sense for them to either package and move up. So they only have 3 first-round selections. It also could make sense for them, to package or trade one of those picks and trade back into another draft, maybe 2026 or 2027, probably 2026, a year that they don't have as many picks. So if you have a team that wants to get a good cost-controlled player in a deep draft right now, you can trade one of those picks to them and move back and pick up an asset in 2027 where you potentially don't know. Maybe it could be higher than that pick is right now. So that would make some sense for them to recoup some assets in a later year. So there's just so many options for the Nets to move up in this draft. There's also so many options where they could be getting involved in trades, whether it be the Phoenix Suns with the Kevin Durant sweepstakes. That's something that I'm going to touch on in another episode this week, but I think there's a lot of options for them to get involved in that and potentially move up using some of their picks to get another pick there, whether it be, the Spurs had the 14th pick. They're rumored to be Kevin Durant's top preferred destination. The Rockets have the 10th pick. The Timberwolves seem like they could be out, but if they get back in, they have the 17th pick, and also the Heat have the 20th pick. So all of those picks are options where the Nets could package other things, consolidate, move up, get involved in those sweepstakes in the salary dump capacity. So there's just a lot of options for the Nets with these picks. There's a lot of different ways that they can look to maneuver it. And obviously that's going to impact their position, and it could impact some of the prospects that we're going to talk about with Derek that, could be late round options. Where they're picking obviously could change. So thought I'd touch on that. There's been a lot of speculation about movement, but going to take a quick break, and coming back, we're going to be talking with Derek Parker about some late round prospects who could be steals for the Nets. Before we get to that, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Look, guys, maybe you're watching a Nets game and Cam Thomas is heating up while Nick Claxton's blocking shots. With FanDuel, you can combine live prop bets as the action unfolds. If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with a same-game parlay? New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Here with Derek Parker, draft analyst on YouTube and writer for On SI. And we had Derek on earlier this week talking about the Nets' most realistic options at 8. But the Nets obviously have 19, they have 26, they have 27. So going to get into some of the later options that we could see the Nets come away with those picks. Derek, any late round guys that you feel like might fall there on the board, but you're higher than consensus on?
Yeah, I've been telling people I think this draft flattens out a lot at number 11, which I think works to teams like Brooklyn's advantage in terms of they've got 3 picks. Teams are going to be scrambling for all these different types of players, and there could be some really, really talented ones fall to 19, 26, 27. So a myriad of high upside swings that I think are interesting for Brooklyn late would be Michigan's Danny Wolf, Illinois' Will Riley, who has seemed to really fall on consensus. I'm still kind of a fan. And then Adu Thero, to me, is a player that maybe doesn't project to be a star in the league, but I think he's got high upside in terms of he's massive, athletic. I've got a video on YouTube coming out on him soon, so we can touch on him.
Yeah, let's start on Wolf. I love watching Wolf play, and he's just a fun guy to watch. There's no shortage of UMich people in New York City, so there's a lot of Danny Wolf fans. I know a lot of Danny Wolf fans. Just what'd you enjoy most about his skill set and watching him, and what about that do you feel like could project well to the next level?
I don't know that I've ever seen a 7-footer play as much face-up basketball as Danny Wolf. I mean, I think he scored the majority of his points as the pick and roll handler, which is like completely absurd to do. Like that is just mind-blowing. So he's not the perfect prospect. He wasn't massively efficient at any level. There were a high number of turnovers, but like you said, he's so fun that like any team that gambles on him is at least going to get an experience. And I think there is a world where at its core, the NBA want advantage creators. And I think Wolf, with his size, his fluidity, the way he can play facing the basket, he can shoot it a little bit. There's going to be opportunity to create these various advantages throughout the game. And there's a world where he hones all of it and he pairs all of it down. He's a really impactful basketball player that is one of the more fun players to watch in the entire league.
And I think Wolf's really interesting from the Nets perspective because I've talked about it, with Queen, I've talked about it, and Jordi Fernandez being a guy who has coached guys like Nikola Jokic, guys like Domantas Sabonis, who are, these half-court hub big men, guys who you could run things through. He's talked about wanting Nick Claxton and Day'Ron Sharpe to develop that skill set somewhat. we'll see if they ever get there. But you just said it, like guys that you want to put them in positions they can create advantages for them. The way that the Nets ran their offense last year with just running Cam Johnson off a zillion screens, all these DHO actions, all these different things that they did, really open, they give openings and opportunities for bigs to make plays. So, from Wolf in that regard, how could you see him fitting in there? And is there a player who you kind of see, an NBA player, as a projectable model for what he could be?
Yeah, in terms of the passing and opening up the floor game, I think Wolf would be able to do all of that really well. I mean, watching Cam Johnson fly around a Wolf DHO, or even like a Wolf pick and roll, flip it to the corner for a Cam Johnson 3 would be phenomenal. He's just a very versatile player that can do so many different things because he is big size, but plays like a true point guard. So, I mean, again, just absurd stuff. I don't know that I have a projectable player for him. He's just so unique in the way that he plays. Like, he's legitimately a wing out there at 7 foot doing these things. So he moves a little clunkily. Like, he's not the fastest, but he gets downhill still. He can handle the ball legitimately. There's a play, I don't even remember who it was against, but I'm sure if you look up Danny Wolf step back 3, you can find it.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Where he hits a spin move and then he steps back off of it.
Move into a step back for a 7-footer. It's one of the most mind-boggling plays I've ever seen.
Yeah, so he's got a bag. He's got skills like that. I've heard people and trainers talk about his work ethic, and he's just a guy that is a grinder. And it'll be interesting with him because I think wherever he falls, even if he doesn't hit the high end outcome, I think he's a guy who could have some utility, and fans and the team will just have a lot of fun kind of watching his path. You said Adu Thero, another guy that could potentially be available in the Nets range later in the first round. What about you? What about him excites you?
Yeah, he's a player that I think is very much still a work in progress. He's 6'8". He's got a 7-foot wingspan. He played a few years at Kentucky under Calipari, followed him to Arkansas, and then broke out there. He's 21, a junior, but has so much growing to do in terms of learning things on the ball. He was a late growth spurt guy, so he was smaller in high school. I think he's even grown in college. So he had that guard background, so he can handle the ball. One of the most athletic players in this class. He's obviously not Thompson twin level, but like every once in a while, he'll do something on the court and you're like, okay, that was like pretty insane. Like, he'll block a shot 9 feet in the air and you're like, what are we doing here? How is that even possible? He's just really good. He's a guy who I think projects to, in the NBA, play finish early in his career. The shot is nowhere near a finished product at all. I think he shoots 25% on like 1 attempt per game. So a long way to go in that regard, but he's so athletic. He's huge. I think he's like 220. He can strength create, which I'm always big on. If you can get downhill and just move people out of the way with the chicken wing, I like that. He'll be able to play a little dunker spot wing. He'll be versatile defensively. He's just a player that I feel like is hiding in plain sight in terms of being a late round first that could get a lot more value than that.
What do you see as like the position for him? Is he like a 4 at the next level?
I think, yeah, probably a combo forward. Maybe shies more towards a 4, just being that he can't necessarily shoot the ball at like a high level. But if you want to play him at the 3 too and size up, I think that would work as well.
What have you seen as kind of the range for him in the projections that you've looked at, or anybody that you've talked to?
It seems like he's either going to be you love him or hate him prospect. So that's either probably going to make him late teens for teams that really, really like him, or maybe even like an early second if he ends up passing some of those teams by and some of those other middling ones don't like him. I think he would be a fun play at 26 or 27 for the Nets. I mean, if you're talking, they take a high gamble at 8 and then maybe they do the same at 19. Thero is a guy who kind of toes that line between he's still got some upside, but he's also got those projectable role player things that he does well right now that could help the team next season and for years to come.
And last guy that you mentioned before we take a quick break, Will Riley, a guy that I think really came on towards the end of last season in Illinois. What about him is attracted to you?
Yeah, he's a true 6'9" wing, massive. I think he's fairly fluid. Some of his movement is a little choppier, but he's big. He can move well. Wasn't efficient as a scorer in totality, but the shot just goes in at some point. Like he I think was like a 43 35 from the field and 3. He makes shots. He's got a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. he's just a high upside bet at the end of the first round that I feel like is kind of being passed up for some of these other flashier guys. He played in a really tough Illinois system. It's hard to get minutes there. It's hard to play impactful basketball there. He did so as a true freshman. He was a 5-star. So he's just a player that I don't want people to forget about in terms of upside swings, because he's a 6'9" wing who can handle the ball. He can pass the ball. He can score at all three levels to some degree. He's just one we need to keep on the radar, I think.
Coming up next to close out the show, we'll talk about some potential higher level prospects who could fall to the Nets and be steals at 19. Closing out today's Locked On Nets episode, talking to Derek Parker about the Nets draft options. Derek, we just talked about later in the draft, and the Nets are also at 19. They could potentially move to the lottery, but assuming they stay at 19, are there any guys you're looking at the board who you think could have been potentially lottery options who maybe fall and could make their way down there and be steals for the Nets with that pick?
Yeah, this might get blown up in my face because he did get a green room invite, but Asa Newell of Georgia was one of the top freshman producers in the country. Really good. The issue being he's kind of a tweener with no real home on the floor right now. Like, I don't think he'll probably be able to play the NBA 5 right now, but he doesn't shoot it quite well enough to play the 4. Can he offer small ball 5 and some decent 4 minutes? Sure, but I think he's kind of a project in that regard. So when I look at the board and I just see all these guys kind of in that middling range, Colin Murray-Boyles, Thomas Sorber, Jace Richardson, obviously, to me, it seems like Newell, despite being a good prospect, could be passed up and could be there at 19 for the Nets. And in my eyes, that would be a home run swing, because you're getting what would likely be a lottery talent, but one that just didn't quite have a home in terms of on-court production early in his career, or was maybe not quite the upside pick that people wanted, but would be great at number 19.
Yeah, Sean Marks and the Nets front office aren't exactly strangers to Georgia big men who are sort of seen as tweeners. Obviously, referring to Nick Claxton. I'm not sure if you remember what you remember about Claxton's evaluation out of college, but how do you kind of compare them and their skill sets in terms of what they did there?
Yeah, I think Claxton's quite a bit longer, so he's probably more attuned to playing the true 5 than Newell. But Newell's scrappy, man. I mean, like I said, one of the top producers as a true freshman. It can't be ignored. 15 points, I think nearly 9 rebounds per game, a steal and block a piece per game with the Bulldogs, which is, I mean, he's a scrapper. He produced in the SEC, one of the best conferences in basketball. There's no ignoring what he did. It's now just about projecting what he'll be able to do at the NBA level. And the truth is that while some of it may be good, he's still going to be a developmental pick in my mind, but he projects to do some things well. Of all these bigs that we touch on here, Derek Queen, Kamon Malawach, and others, I think Newell might actually be the best projectable three-point shooter of that group. Like, he's got the cleanest shot. He took and made more shots than all of those guys, despite the numbers not being perfect. So if he does develop a three-point shot, you're looking at a heck of a 4 that can do a lot of different things, is versatile on both ends. So that's kind of the one skill to watch with Newell.
And last two guys I want to hit on who were potentially seen as in the range of the top 10, and now are starting to seem like they're sliding on some boards and some mock drafts. Colin Murray-Boyles and Jace Richardson, I think, are two names that had a lot of juice, to them heading into the combine. Let's start with CMB first. He's an interesting player. He's a guy who I don't think the Nets would swing for at 8, but maybe if they move up, maybe if he were to fall to 19, what do you think they would be getting? Because there are some people who are just like almost CMB truthers who seem to just be in love with him so much that he's like in the top 5 of some big boards. So why do you think that is?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. He is another of these. You either love him or hate him. He's a 6'7" big, essentially, like can't really shoot the 3 ball at all, but is pretty versatile with the ball in hands. He can put it on the floor. For my money, probably the best defender in this class. Like 1 through 5 is so often thrown around. Like he's close. I'm not going to say 1 through 5. Like obviously fast guards and like huge centers would give him some trouble, but he's a versatile defender. He's got some muck to him. He can blow things up, disrupt. So super interesting prospect. He's kind of from that Derek Queen mold where he can pass really well. He can do a lot of different things with the ball in hand. He could kind of be a high post hub if you get it to him, run some DHOs. So he's a player that I would swing on certainly in this range. I think the the height is a little overblown. Like, sure, he's 6'7", but he's got huge long arms. He can size up. He's one of the strongest players in this class, which again, I'm big on strength. I think it's an underrated skill in terms of NBA translation. If you're not able to be moved around, or if you're able to move people around at the NBA level, I think you're going to find success. So I'm big on CMB. The issue with CMB is you just don't know where he's going to go because, like you said, if one of these franchises has an analytics model that projects him to be the second best player in this class, they're going to take him at 8, 9, 10, 11, like wherever it is. So his range is one of the highest and lowest I've seen. It's polarizing. I have no idea what to do with him on my own mocks. So that's where I'm at with CMB right now.
Last guy, Jace Richardson, another one, very undersized guard, but a guy who seems very high feel and was able to produce very well at Michigan State, and obviously has, the family ties with his dad. Just what do you see from him as a prospect, and what's kind of the range that you would feel comfortable with him? Because some people, some mocks and big boards are saying he could potentially fall to 19, where based off of where he was mocked and projected, maybe coming into the end of the college season, people would have been surprised if he made it there then.
Yeah, he's a good player, man. Obviously, he's a 6'3" combo guard, so that's not necessarily something that a lot of NBA teams are chomping at the bit to add. And he's a true combo guard, so he can play point guard, run it a little bit, but he's not elite necessarily in terms of like ball handling or passing. But then he's a good shooter too, off ball. He can spot up, slash, do a lot of different things from that position as well. He's a good player. Like you said, high feel is one of the biggest things. I mean, he just doesn't make mistakes. Like, it just doesn't happen. It's so hard to succeed in Tom Izzo's Michigan State system. And he came in and he just like demanded minutes. He just forced Izzo's hand in terms of like, you have to play me. And he did down the stretch, and he got even better. He's a player that I think is bound for positive NBA impact. I don't know if that's necessarily in a starting lineup, but maybe as a 6-man, just a rotational player, really, really smart, savvy. He's got a 6'8" wingspan. So again, I'm bigger on wingspan than I am height. Sure, he's 6'3", but if you can fan out and defend people bigger than you, then that's everything. The problem with Richardson at 19 is that these teams, 16 Orlando, 17 Minnesota, feel like they would hone in on Richardson in terms of needing 3-point shooting, guard depth, or even teams jumping ahead. Like the Thunder are probably not set in stone at 15. So like a team could jump up and grab him there. I really think his range probably starts just outside the lottery. So I don't know that I see him falling to 19, but obviously Brooklyn could trade up a few if they were like dead set on him.
All right, Derek, really appreciate both of your appearances on this show. You did a great job. If you guys don't already, go follow Derek's work on YouTube. Does a great job with his scouting reports, also writing on SI. Thank you, man. And maybe I'll come back after the draft and we'll have some evaluation of some of the Nets picks.
100%, man. I'm so excited to see who Brooklyn lands, what they do, whether they keep all 4, whether they trade up. It's going to be a great time.
That does it for this episode of Locked On Nets. Hope you guys enjoyed another interview with Derek. Think he did a great job earlier this week talking about the Nets options at 8 and some of the upside swings they can take. And it was good to touch on some of these later picks, something that I'm going to do more extensively. I'm going to get more into some of these late options and do some deeper dives on some of these players and some of the guys I think who could be my favorite targets. But thank you to all of you for tuning in and supporting the show. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Anything you can do to engage, it really helps build this channel. And I really appreciate all the support that I've gotten thus far. But I'll be back tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.